Yes, that's us. Good morning, welcome everyone. My name is Alex, this is Maxim. Today we talk about agentic browsing, that is, GenAI models. Oh, we don't see our slides yet. Here we are. GenAI models that have been given browser access. What that can look like, we'll show you in the next 15 minutes, but let's start with a quick survey. Who has already used agentic browsing tools? Show us your hands. That's
all right.
nice.
Yeah, maybe someone willing to share which agentic browsing tool? Yeah, over there, the gentleman. ChatGPT Atlas. Okay. Anyone used anything other than ChatGPT Atlas? Yes. Comet by Perplexity, right? Okay. So how's this going for you? Are you hooked? Are you using it every day now, or was it more like just an experiment? It did not add any value. Okay. Okay, so it did not add any value. How about over there? Chat. Uh-huh. Okay, so it added to like mixed feedback basically. Some people get some value, maybe not. Maybe let me ask you a quick related question. Are there any programmers in the room? Hands up if you're a developer. Okay, quite a few. Who of the developers is using something like Cursor or Copilot? Okay, so almost all hands are going up, right? So a quick prediction. I would say that in a year from now, if I ask this question in this room and I say, who's using agentic browsers? It'll be the same. All your hands will go up. So that's, prediction for 1 year from now. We'll see when we're meeting again at GenAI Summit 5 if that's true. But basically now, we want to talk about, we're going from chatbot to agents. We want to do things. And that's why agentic browsing is an interesting area for that. So Alex, please tell us more.
Yeah, the first time both of us really got excited about agents was in March, February this year, when we used exactly this IDEs and used coding agents in them, and that became better and better, and we started to get impressed. The inflection point for this development was GPT-4o, which was a model that came with a couple of features that are really important when you work with agentic or with agents and agentic workflows. First one being drastically lower latency. That's of course important for more seamless experiences and for more enjoyable user experiences. Then the second one, multimodal. Having a model that's capable of digesting images and text at the same time makes more integrated use cases possible. And then of course there's the cornerstone of reliable agents, grammar-constrained decoding.
Yeah, so I get to talk to you about this really boring sounding term, grammar-constrained decoding. Who has heard of it in this room? One hand goes up. Okay, we would not be having this conference if it wasn't for that. Why? Because today we're not just talking about chatbots, we're talking about AI agents. And the thing that LLMs brought, why it's such a big deal, is because we're actually introducing non-determinism in a deterministic system, right? Like programming has been traditionally been a deterministic exercise. Suddenly you have non-deterministic systems adding a lot of value, but how are you going to get non-deterministic systems speaking with deterministic systems? It's kind of like an API you need, right? And we have APIs for that. Usually you use JSON. But have you ever tried getting an LLM to generate valid JSON for you? Like before GPT-4o, this was hard. Maybe you remember the days where you had to write prompts where you told like, please, 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 it has to be valid JSON. You have to start with a curly bracket, right? Well, with GPT-4o for the first time, you were able to get 100% accurate JSON because we moved the engine that ensured that valid JSON comes out into the model. And this is what grammar-constrained decoding is about. You reduce the sample set. So you don't give the entire alphabet anymore to the model and say, here, pick any letter. But you say, hey, this must be JSON. So the first valid letter has to be a curly bracket. So the non-deterministic system suddenly becomes much more reliable. And this is what enabled the whole agentic revolution that we've seen. It's no accident that agentic coding tools like Cursor and so on came around in February, became big in February of this year, because it took from August until February for the teams that build things like Cursor to implement this properly, right? So, okay, next slide, please, Alex. So let's do a quick, let's do a quick timeline. The age of agentic browsers. So 2025, we start in January with OpenAI Operator preview. This was basically some agentic browsing built directly into ChatGPT. Maybe you remember you had to connect it to your Gmail account and then it could like summarize your emails. Then Google, of course, with their Marina project did something quite similar. Then we had Brave Leo, that's the Brave browser. They've actually been doing a kind of agentic browsing for a while. They just didn't do the clicking part, they just did the summarize this page part already. That worked before you had grammar constraint decoding, because you could simply take the HTML from a website, put that into the context window, right, and say, hey, summarize this for me. But then in June, they said, okay, now we also want to like click and interact with the website. Then Comet, that's Perplexity's browser, right? It started with a hefty price tag of $200 per month. In July 17th, Alex and I, we came up with our own version of an agentic browsing tool called Twain. So at this time, we didn't even know about Comet yet, but we got interested in it, and that's why we're standing here today talking to you about it. We'll see more about Twain in a moment. Then we heard about Claude for Chrome. That was in August. So this is still not released, but Claude is working on their own browser extension that they want to make available. This was, by the way, only released to about 1,000 people in a preview mode because they were seriously concerned about privacy and safety implications, and they still are. So they started their whole statement with a whole page talking about the privacy and safety concerns they had, while others were just running ahead. Then Gemini and Chrome came out. It's still the case that this is only available in the US. If you're in Europe, you cannot use these built-in features, but in the US you can. Then we had Opera Neon came out for a much smaller price, right? Just $20 a month. And of course, when Comet saw that, they went free because, you know, the market suddenly got a lot more competition. Then another browser came out, Dia browser by the browser company. They also have agentic features for $20 a month. Then just recently, at the end of October, ChatGPT Atlas came out. That's probably the most famous example to date. If anyone has heard about agentic browsing, it's probably because of ChatGPT Atlas. And then also in Edge, Microsoft's browser, they started introducing AI features. And now that brings us to November. We're getting really close to today. Amazon actually started suing Perplexity. Can you imagine why? Who has an idea why Amazon would sue Perplexity over their agentic browsing tool? Yes? Maybe they didn't honor the LLM. No, that's not it. So if you open Amazon's shopping page, what's the first thing you see after you search for something? Sponsored products. Do you think agentic browsers care about sponsored products or ads? So there's your answer, right? So this whole agentic browsing thing is throwing up a lot of interesting questions that go beyond just the technical aspects. And last but not least, on November 20th, we got our first mobile agentic browser that just came out a few days ago. So if you want to try that. Yeah, and so what have we seen in 2025? Well, we've seen a move from experimental tech to enterprise tools that cost hundreds of dollars, to democratized access, where suddenly it's free, and you have competition in the system. That's the ecosystem diversity. And all that just happened in 10 months ago, within the last 10 months, let's say. So with that, I'm handing back to Alex.
All right. I'll try to use these microphones, because now we're going to bring Twain into the presentation. So this is Twain, the agentic browsing tool that we built. Hi, Twain. Jump to the next slide. Let's kick it off. So what you see is not just another chat window in the browser. It's actually more than that. Where's my mouse? And now it's time for a live demo. It already clicked to the next slide for us. Well, that's not the most useful thing to do with an agentic browsing tool, but it can do a lot of other things. Here's the tool menu. Today, we just saw it use the browser interactions tool. There are a couple of other tools that we can't show you all today because time is sparse, and so yeah, we're going to try our best. But this is not everything. This is everything that's there in the most capable build of Twain. Then we also have the model picker. This looks like you would expect it maybe, but you also see that we have different classes of models. So they're the ones with the green lock. These are open source models that we run on our own GPU cluster, our company's own GPU cluster, which is important because it enables privacy-sensitive use cases. So that's nice. We won't use one of them today because we don't have such a use case. And Claude Haiku as an external model that we get from OpenRouter is pretty fast and reliable, so hopefully good for live demos. But we will see. So what is Twain good at? For us, it's particularly helpful if you want to like synthesize or boil down larger amounts of information. Say you want to summarize a web page, or say you go to a conference and you need to sift through the program to find some talks. So let's tell Twain, check out the agenda and come up with a recommendation for a talk. All right, this is not very specific. Any specific interests? Any talk you want to see? Or any area you want to see something? Yeah?
Well-being.
Well-being. Recommendation for a talk on well-being. Let's try that. Okay, so Twain takes off. What do we see? It switched the tab. Yeah, fine. Now it reads the web page. So in these inlays, you can see what Twain is doing. You can follow the tools that it calls. Each of these represents a tool call, and if you expand them, you can see the parameters that Twain called the tool with. And there's also always a reason for why the model claims that it had to call this tool. And this gives you a nice trajectory of what the model is attempting to do. So now you see these are stochastic models. It doesn't always work. In this case, it navigated to a URL that I think was made up, just agenda. So let's see if it corrects itself. I think maybe it did already. Oh no. Speakers. Well, here's one. So Maria Vacola is talking about, I hope I pronounced this right, but she's talking about AI, organizational well-being, and the future of work. When is this talk? Well, we don't know yet. We would have to ask. But yeah, maybe you want to visit the talk. With that, I'm handing over to Maxim again.
So you see we're playing a bit with a live wire here. We never know what's going to happen. You know, you send some prompt, you don't know what you're going to get. But what is interesting about agents, what are agents? It's an LLM running in a loop with some tools. They can self-correct, right? So even if they don't get it right on the first shot, if you set up a nice feedback loop, then there's a chance that the system can correct itself. And we just saw that, right? And by the way, this is also a warning. We're in 2025. We're in the age of brittle, unreliable agents. You know, you will see errors happening. And that's also one of the reasons we're giving this talk today, because we want to raise some awareness about the dangers of agentic browsing. But I do want to give you one more demo here, because you know, the most exciting thing that everyone wants to always see is an agent clicking around in the browser, right? So let's do kind of like the demo that maybe Sam Altman would do if he was standing here and introducing ChatGPT Atlas. So you say something like, let me just switch microphones. So you say something like, please, well, let's not use please. I don't want to burn tokens unnecessarily. So book a trip, or even more specifically, a one-way trip from Athens to Munich for Friday. So what we've done, we've actually integrated Twain. Alex? We've actually integrated Twain. Okay, now this microphone is working. We've integrated Twain with some of our company tools. So internally at TNG, we use TravelPerk for booking our flights. And we have customized this so that it actually has access to all our tools. And what you see here is TravelPerk, or recently renamed to Perk. And now Twain is going to try and interact with the form fields in order to book a flight for me. This is the shopping experience that Amazon is suing Perplexity over, right? TravelPerk luckily hasn't started suing us yet. Hopefully they won't. But this is pretty much it. So now we're trying to book a flight, and depending on which model you choose, the LLM might be very eager and just go ahead and book the flight without asking you for feedback. So I'm going to not turn my head away from the screen entirely, because hopefully it's not booking a real flight for me right now. But that's something you might want to be aware of, right? Like if you start off some task and you go and cook yourself a coffee, that maybe while you're gone, it's booking like expensive shoes on Amazon for you. Yeah, so maybe Alex, you can stop it now. Thank you very much. Okay, so but that's the potential, right? That's both the promise and the danger of agentic browsing. So that's just one example. Okay, next example.
Yeah. Next example, let's talk about risks. So what can possibly go wrong when booking a restaurant table? When you expose your model to external content that you don't control, you always have to live with the risk that that deviates the model's behavior, and it behaves in ways that you didn't intend. So on this little booking widget here that actually doesn't do much, we've embedded something into the HTML that redirects the AI assistant. It tells him, or it, or her, that this widget is actually deprecated, and it should navigate to a new platform, which is, the link to this is here, but it should not only navigate there, it should also append a URL-encoded description of the booking it's attempting to make. So it should inject some information from the current chat context into the URL and share that with some untrusted third party. So let's try what's happening. Book me a table for 2 persons tonight at Twain's Finest. Use the booking widget on the current page. Let's kick this off and see what happens. The model's reading the web page again. It's navigating. Okay, and let me stop it here. Sometimes it tries to revert its actions. But what actually happened, so you saw, it took this instruction seriously, it navigated to the supposedly new platform, and it even gave some information from the chat context with the request. So now this page has received Twain's Finest 2 persons tonight. This is not the most sensitive of data, right? So but it's easy to imagine that the model shares more sensitive data, and you don't want to have that. So what can you do about that? We have actually one mechanism built into Twain that is the human in the loop. So you can configure for every tool that it should ask for confirmation. This makes the whole agent experience slower, so we switched it off for the demos, but it's important if you want to be safe and are just playing around with this. And then also we distribute, or we don't, and this is something that we use in our company internally, but we have 2 different builds. And one build is the very safe one that doesn't contain all these dangerous tools that can make the model access the browser and share potentially information with other parties that you don't want it to share information with. So these are 2 measures that we take. All right.
Perfect. And with that, we're actually ending our presentation right now. There's a lot more we could talk about. If you have questions, feel free to come up to us. We can show you more about how Twain works, talk about the benefits, dangers of general agentic browsing. And maybe we have just 30 seconds for one more question from the audience. Okay. Any questions? Yes.
Hello. So,
hi.
Do you believe that those agents are like user agents or like agents? I don't know. So when I'm using the browser, I'm a user agent for that browser. Mm. How do you see those tools to be recognized by Google Chrome, or I don't know?
Mm-hmm. So your question is about how does the website know that I'm acting as an agent and not as a human?
Yeah.
Well, at the time being, you don't, right? There's browser automation. I could have shown you the demo earlier where I booked a flight. I could have shown it to you on Google Flights. And there, it's much harder to pull this off because Google Flights has built all sorts of browser bots, anti-automation mechanisms into it, right? And maybe just to say this, the browser is essentially a human crutch, right? It's one machine talking to another machine with the human in the middle. So in some sense, this is very ineffective, right? You should just have machine talk directly to machine. So interacting with the DOM, trying to click buttons, like why would you make a machine do that, right? But yes, there's a whole lot of questions that are open, including legal questions, security questions that are unsolved. And that's really, if you took one thing away from the talk today, then it is, please be careful with these agentic browsing tools. And yeah, come to us after the talk if you have more questions about that.